The Vikings. Even the word evokes a sense of awe and terror. Images of fierce warriors wielding axes and swords spring to mind. We picture their longships slicing through the waves, their dragon heads a warning to those who dare stand in their way. The Vikings have become synonymous with raiding and plunder. Their brutal attacks on monasteries and coastal settlements left a lasting mark on the European psyche. Yet the Vikings were more than just raiders. They were skilled craftsmen, traders, and explorers. The Viking Age, spanning roughly from the late 8th to the 11th centuries AD, was a time of great change and upheaval in Europe. The Vikings, hailing from Scandinavia, emerged from the shadows of history to leave their mark on the world. They were not a unified empire, but a collection of chiefdoms and kingdoms bound by a common cultural heritage and a thirst for adventure. Their impact was felt far and wide, from the shores of North America to the Caspian Sea. The Viking world was vast and interconnected. It stretched from the icy fjords of Norway to the bustling markets of Constantinople. The Vikings were master navigators, their longships capable of crossing vast distances. They braved the treacherous waters of the North Atlantic, establishing settlements in Iceland, Greenland, and even North America. To the east, they sailed down the rivers of Russia, establishing trade routes that reached as far as the Byzantine Empire and the Abbasid Caliphate. The Viking heartland encompassed modern-day Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. These lands, while geographically distinct, shared a common cultural heritage. The Vikings were a seafaring people, their lives intertwined with the ocean. They were skilled shipbuilders, their longships a testament to their craftsmanship. These vessels, long and narrow, were designed for speed and maneuverability. They were powered by both sail and oars, allowing the Vikings to navigate both open seas and shallow rivers. Wealth in the Viking Age was not simply a matter of accumulating gold and silver. It was a multifaceted concept, encompassing land ownership, social status, and access to resources. For the Vikings, wealth was a means to an end. It was a way to secure power, influence, and a better life for themselves and their families. The accumulation of wealth was often a violent affair, with raiding and warfare playing a significant role. The Vikings placed a high value on land. It represented not only a source of food and resources, but also a symbol of power and prestige. Land ownership was passed down through families, with the eldest son typically inheriting the lion's share. Those who controlled large tracts of land held significant sway within Viking society. They could command the loyalty of those who lived and worked on their lands, providing them with a ready source of manpower in times of war. While the Vikings' reputation as fearsome raiders precedes them, their prowess as traders and explorers is often overlooked. The Viking Age witnessed a flourishing of trade and exchange, connecting Scandinavia to a vast network of commercial hubs across Europe and beyond. The Vikings, driven by a thirst for wealth and exotic goods, established trade routes that spanned from the icy shores of Greenland to the bustling markets of Constantinople. The Vikings were shrewd merchants, adept at navigating the complexities of international trade. They established trading posts and settlements at strategic locations along their trade routes, such as Hedeby in Denmark, Birka in Sweden, and Dublin in Ireland. These bustling emporiums served as vital links between Scandinavia and the wider world, facilitating the exchange of goods, ideas, and cultures. The Vikings, despite their fearsome reputation, were not driven solely by the pursuit of plunder. Their voyages, while often fueled by the promise of riches, were also motivated by a deeper desire, the acquisition of silver. Silver in the Viking Age was more than just a precious metal. It was the lifeblood of their economy, a symbol of wealth, power, and influence. It flowed through their trade routes like a silver tide. connecting the vast expanse of the Viking world. The Vikings' fascination with silver stemmed from its inherent value and versatility. Unlike perishable goods like furs or timber, silver held its worth over time. It could be melted down, reshaped, and used to craft exquisite jewelry, ceremonial objects, and even currency. Silver hoards, unearthed from Viking settlements and burial mounds across Europe, attest to their profound reverence for this gleaming metal. The Baltic Sea, often shrouded in mist and legend, was not a barrier, but a bridge for the Vikings. It was their highway to the east, connecting them to a world of riches and opportunity. Birka, a bustling Viking Age trading centre located on an island in Lake Mälaren in present-day Sweden, stood as a testament to the Vikings' mastery of maritime trade. Birka, founded in the 8th century, quickly rose to prominence as a central hub for trade and exchange in the Baltic region. Its strategic location, sheltered from the open sea yet easily accessible by river routes, attracted merchants from far and wide. Viking longships, laden with furs, timber and iron from Scandinavia, arrived at Birka's bustling harbour, their crews eager to barter for exotic goods from distant lands. At the southern edge of the Viking world, where the rolling hills of Jutland meet the waters of the Schlei Fjord, lay Hedeby, a bustling emporium that served as a vital gateway between Scandinavia and the Frankish kingdoms. Founded in the late 8th century, Hedeby quickly rose to prominence as a centre for trade, craftsmanship and cultural exchange, its prosperity fueled by the flow of goods and people between the north and the south. Hedeby's strategic location at the crossroads of major trade routes made it an ideal meeting place for merchants from far and wide. Viking longships, arriving from the north, brought with them furs, walrus ivory and amber from the Baltic region, their holds also carrying slaves captured in raids along the coasts of the British Isles. From the south, Frankish merchants arrived with goods prized by the Vikings, finely crafted swords, woolen cloth, and most importantly, silver coins. On the eastern shores of Ireland, where the River Liffey meets the Irish Sea, arose a Viking stronghold that would become a legendary centre of trade, power and cultural fusion, Dublin. Founded in the 9th century by Viking raiders who had initially targeted the island for its monastic wealth, Dublin transformed from a seasonal raiding base into a permanent settlement, a testament to the Vikings' adaptability and their keen eye for opportunity. Dublin's strategic location, at the mouth of a navigable river and possessing a naturally sheltered harbour, made it an ideal base for controlling trade routes along the Irish Sea and beyond. Viking longships, their sails emblazoned with fearsome ravens or dragons, arrived in Dublin, laden with goods from across the Viking world. Furs and timber from Scandinavia, slaves captured in raids on the British Isles, and even luxury goods like silks and spices acquired through trade networks that stretched as far as the Byzantine Empire. Across the often stormy waters of the North Sea, the Vikings established a powerful presence in Anglo-Saxon England, carving out a territory known as the Danelaw, where their laws and customs held sway. At the heart of the Danelaw lay York, a city steeped in Roman history, which the Vikings transformed into a thriving centre of trade, power and cultural fusion. York, known to the Vikings as Jorvik, occupied a strategic location at the confluence of the rivers Ouse and Foss, its Roman walls still providing a formidable defence. The Vikings, arriving in the 9th century, recognised York's potential and quickly established it as a major base for their operations in England. From York, Viking warlords launched raids deep into Anglo-Saxon territory, amassing wealth and extending their influence. The Vikings' thirst for adventure and their mastery of the sea led them to embark on voyages of exploration that pushed the boundaries of the known world. Driven by a combination of factors, population pressures in their Scandinavian homelands, a desire for new lands to settle, and perhaps a yearning for the unknown, they ventured westward across the treacherous North Atlantic, reaching islands shrouded in mist and legend. Iceland, a land of fire and ice, was first settled by Vikings in the late 9th century. These intrepid explorers, led by chieftains seeking to escape the rule of the Norwegian King Harald Fairhair, braved the unpredictable North Atlantic. Their longships laden with livestock, timber, and families seeking a new life. Iceland, despite its harsh climate, offered these Viking settlers a chance to start anew, to establish farmsteads, and to create a society based on their own laws and traditions. The Vikings' thirst for silver and their insatiable curiosity led them to forge trade routes that spanned continents, connecting the icy fjords of Scandinavia to the sun-drenched shores of the Caspian Sea. The Volga trade route, a network of rivers and portages that stretched for thousands of miles, became a vital artery for commerce and cultural exchange, linking the Vikings to the riches of the Byzantine Empire and the Islamic world. Viking adventurers, known as Russes in the East, began exploring the rivers of Eastern Europe in the 8th century. They sailed down the Volga, their longships laden with furs, slaves, honey and wax, commodities highly prized in the markets of the south. The Volga, flowing south through the heart of what is now Russia, became their highway to a world of opportunity. The Viking world, connected by vast trade networks, thrived on the exchange of goods, both mundane and exotic. From the icy fjords of Scandinavia to the bustling marketplaces of Constantinople, Viking merchants transported a dazzling array of commodities, their longships becoming floating bazaars laden with treasures from distant lands. Furs, prized for their warmth and luxury, were a staple of the Viking economy. Sable, ermine and marten pelts, acquired from the forests of Scandinavia and Russia, were highly sought after in the markets of Byzantium and the Islamic world. Viking merchants traded these furs for silver, silks and spices, bringing back to Scandinavia a taste of the exotic East. The Vikings' reputation as fearsome raiders often precedes them, conjuring images of fierce warriors wielding axes and swords, descending upon unsuspecting settlements in a whirlwind of violence and plunder. Yet, beneath this veneer of brutality lay a calculated economic strategy, a testament to the Vikings' pragmatism and their ability to adapt to the opportunities and challenges of their world. Raiding, far from being a purely opportunistic endeavor, was often a carefully planned and executed operation, driven by the fundamental principles of supply and demand. For the Vikings, inhabiting the rugged landscapes of Scandinavia, with its limited agricultural potential and harsh climate, raiding presented a viable means of acquiring resources and accumulating wealth. The fertile lands and wealthy monasteries of mainland Europe, undefended and ripe for the taking, offered a tantalizing source of quick riches. Gold, silver, livestock, slaves, and even foodstuffs were seized in these raids, bolstering the Vikings' own coffers and providing for their communities back home. Targets of opportunity, monasteries and coastal settlements. The Vikings, masters of naval warfare and opportunistic raiders, cast a long shadow over coastal Europe in the early Middle Ages. Their longships, sleek and swift, allowed them to strike with terrifying speed and precision, appearing on the horizon like phantoms, their dragon-headed prows a harbinger of destruction. While no settlement was entirely safe from their raids, certain targets, due to their wealth, strategic location or perceived vulnerability, became favoured prey for Viking war bands seeking plunder and glory. Monasteries, scattered across the European landscape like jewels in a crown, were prime targets for Viking raids. These religious communities, often repositories of wealth and sacred relics, held a fatal attraction for Viking raiders. Their isolation, coupled with the pacifistic tenets of many monastic orders, made them seemingly easy targets. The monks, focused on prayer and scholarship, were often ill-prepared for the sudden violence of a Viking raid. The shifting face of raiding, from plunder to tribute. The Vikings, often perceived as relentless agents of chaos and destruction, were in reality highly adaptable and pragmatic in their approach to warfare and wealth accumulation. While raiding remained a cornerstone of their economic activities throughout the Viking Age, its nature and objectives evolved over time, shifting from a focus on immediate plunder to a more nuanced strategy of tribute extraction and political manipulation. In the early days of the Viking expansion, raids were primarily focused on acquiring loot gold, silver, livestock, slaves' tangible assets that could be readily transported back to Scandinavia and distributed among the members of the raiding party. These early raids were often characterized by their brutality and suddenness, leaving a trail of destruction and fear in their wake. The impact of raids, economic disruption and transformation. The Vikings' raids, while often brief and brutal, left a lasting impact on the societies and economies of early medieval Europe. Their sudden appearance on the horizon, their longships laden with warriors eager for plunder, struck fear into the hearts of coastal communities, disrupting trade routes, decimating populations and leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. Yet, amidst the chaos and devastation, the Vikings' raids also acted as a catalyst for change, forcing societies to adapt, to innovate, and in some cases to transform their own economic and political structures. The immediate impact of a Viking raid was often devastating. Coastal settlements targeted for their wealth and vulnerability were looted and burned, their inhabitants killed or enslaved. Monasteries, repositories of knowledge and spiritual centers were ransacked, their treasures plundered and their libraries destroyed. These attacks disrupted trade networks as merchants became wary of transporting goods along routes vulnerable to Viking attacks. Beyond the battlefield, reinvesting the spoils of war. The Vikings, renowned for their prowess in battle and their acquisition of wealth through raiding, were not simply driven by a lust for plunder. The spoils of war, whether in the form of silver, slaves or precious artifacts, were not merely hoarded, but channeled back into Viking society, fueling economic growth, social mobility and cultural development. The reinvestment of these riches, often acquired through violence, played a crucial role in shaping the Viking Age, transforming Scandinavian societies from within. Viking chieftains, returning victorious from raids, faced the challenge of distributing the spoils of war among their followers. This distribution, often a delicate balancing act, was crucial for maintaining loyalty, attracting new recruits, and ensuring future success. A portion of the loot, silver, weapons, and luxury goods was typically divided among the members of the warband, rewarding their bravery and solidifying their allegiance to their leader. The allure of ransom kings, nobles, and the price of freedom. The Vikings, masters of calculated violence, understood the economic potential of captivity. High-status individuals, kings, nobles, bishops, represented a different kind of prize, generating substantial ransoms. Ransoming became a lucrative enterprise, shaping the political landscape of the Viking Age. The capture of a king or noble promised a windfall of riches. A calculated risk. The logistics and dangers of Viking raids. The Vikings' reputation as daring seafarers and ruthless raiders often obscures the logistical complexities and inherent dangers of their maritime expeditions. A Viking raid was not simply a spontaneous act of violence, but a carefully planned and executed operation, requiring skilled seamanship, meticulous organisation, and a willingness to confront the unpredictable fury of the North Atlantic and the resistance of those they sought to plunder. The success of a Viking raid hinged on the seaworthiness of their longships, the iconic vessels that carried them across vast distances. These ships, long, narrow and shallow-drafted, were marvels of naval engineering, capable of navigating both open seas and shallow rivers. Their construction, involving the felling of massive oak trees, the shaping of planks using axes and adzes, and the intricate joining of timbers using iron rivets and caulking, was a testament to the Vikings' craftsmanship and their intimate knowledge of wood and water. The moral, economy, justifications and condemnations of raiding. The Vikings' raids, characterized by their violence, plunder and enslavement, cast a long shadow over early medieval Europe, evoking fear and condemnation from those who witnessed or experienced their brutality firsthand. Yet, within the moral framework of Viking society, raiding was not necessarily viewed as inherently evil or unjust. It was often justified through a complex interplay of cultural norms, economic necessity, and religious beliefs that shaped their worldview. Viking society, with its emphasis on strength, courage, and martial prowess, often glorified the warrior ethos. Success in battle, whether on land or at sea, was seen as a sign of divine favor, a testament to a warrior's skill and determination. Raiding within this context was often viewed as a legitimate means of acquiring wealth and proving one's worth. It was a test of manhood, a dangerous but potentially lucrative endeavor that offered young warriors a chance to gain glory, acquire status, and attract the favor of the gods. Seeds of settlement, from raiding bases to permanent encampments. The Vikings, renowned for their far-flung voyages and their penchant for raiding, were not simply driven by a desire for plunder or a restless spirit of adventure. Their expeditions, while often fueled by the promise of riches, also served as a means of exploration, a way of testing the waters, so to speak, in search of new lands to settle, resources to exploit, and trade routes to dominate. What began as temporary raiding bases, strategically located along coastlines or rivers, often evolved into more permanent settlements, laying the foundation for Viking expansion and the establishment of new communities far from their Scandinavian homelands. The Vikings' longships, capable of navigating both open seas and inland waterways, allowed them to explore vast stretches of coastline, probing for weaknesses in defences, assessing the wealth of potential targets, and identifying promising locations for future exploitation. These initial explorations, often undertaken by small bands of warriors, were as much about reconnaissance as they were about raiding. The Viking spirit of exploration. The Vikings, often depicted as fierce raiders, possessed an unquenchable thirst for exploration. Driven by curiosity and ambition, they ventured beyond Scandinavia, their longships becoming vessels of discovery. This spirit of exploration was a testament to their seafaring prowess and determination. Westward bound, the saga of Iceland. The Vikings' westward expansion across the North Atlantic led them to a land of stark beauty, a volcanic island forged by fire and ice Iceland. This remote island, shrouded in mist and legend, became a crucible for Viking resilience, a testament to their ability to carve out a new society amidst a challenging landscape. The saga of Iceland, passed down through generations in epic poems and tales, is a testament to the Vikings' enduring spirit, their capacity for adaptation, and their deep-seated connection to the land. The first Vikings to set foot on Iceland's shores, according to tradition, were not driven by a spirit of conquest, but by a desire for freedom. They were fleeing the rule of Harald Fairhair, a Norwegian king who sought to unify Norway under his banner, a prospect anathema to many independent-minded Viking chieftains. These early settlers, led by men like Ingolfur Arnason, brought with them their families, livestock, and a fierce determination to create a new society based on their own laws and traditions. Greenland, a harsh land, a Viking foothold. The Vikings, their appetite for exploration whetted by the settlement of Iceland, set their sights on an even more challenging destination, Greenland. This vast icy island, located even farther west across the treacherous North Atlantic, seemed an unlikely place for human habitation. Yet, the Vikings, driven by a combination of pragmatism, ambition, and perhaps a touch of recklessness, established a foothold on this unforgiving land, their settlements enduring for centuries, a testament to their adaptability and their ability to carve out a living from the edges of the known world. The discovery of Greenland is attributed to Eric the Red, a Viking chieftain exiled from Iceland for manslaughter. Eric, ever the pragmatist, is said to have deliberately given the island its misleadingly verdant name, hoping to attract settlers and avoid spending his exile in solitude. Whether a marketing ploy or a genuine belief in the island's potential, Eric's gamble paid off. A small number of Vikings, enticed by the prospect of new land and perhaps seeking to escape conflicts or overpopulation in Iceland, joined him on his voyage to this new frontier. Vinland, the Vikings in North America. The Vikings, their longships, having carried them to the shores of Iceland and Greenland, achieved a feat that would rewrite the history books they set foot on the North American continent nearly 5 centuries before Columbus. This remarkable voyage, undertaken by a small band of Norse explorers, pushed the boundaries of the known world and left behind tantalizing evidence of their presence in the New World, a testament to their seafaring prowess and their insatiable curiosity. The saga of the Vikings in North America, known as the Vinland sagas, tells the tale of Leif Erikson, son of Eric the Red, who, according to tradition, sailed west from Greenland around the year 1000 AD. Leif, driven by tales of a land sighted to the west by an earlier voyager, set out with a crew of around 35 men, their longship laden with supplies and a yearning for discovery. They landed on a coast teeming with wild grapes, which they named Vinland, a name that hints at the abundance they found in this new world. Eastward expansion across the Russian steppe. While the Vikings' westward voyages captured the imagination, their eastward expansion across the Russian steppe was remarkable. Driven by trade, conquest and adventure, they navigated rivers through what is now Russia, their longships becoming vessels of cultural exchange and economic enterprise. Their eastward expansion left an enduring legacy on Eastern Europe. The drivers of expansion, population, politics, and the pursuit of prosperity. The Vikings' expansion was driven by population pressure, political ambition, and economic opportunity. Population growth in Scandinavia placed pressure on limited resources, particularly arable land. The traditional system of inheritance left younger sons with limited prospects, pushing them to seek fortunes elsewhere. Political fragmentation in Scandinavia saw chieftains vying for power and influence. Expansion offered leaders a chance to amass wealth and enhance their prestige. The legacy of Viking exploration shaping new worlds. The Vikings' legacy as explorers extends far beyond fierce warriors and longships. Their voyages shaped continents, forged new identities, and expanded human horizons. Their impact continues to resonate today, shaping the course of history. They established societies in Iceland, Greenland, and briefly North America. Interactions with indigenous populations led to cultural exchange and new technologies. In the East, their voyages influenced early Russian states and Slavic art. The Vikings, renowned for their seafaring prowess and martial exploits, harboured a deep-seated fascination with a treasure that transcended mere material wealth: silver. This lustrous metal, prized for its beauty, durability and inherent value, flowed through their world like a shimmering current, shaping their economy, adorning their bodies, and influencing their interactions with distant cultures. Silver, in the hands of the Vikings, was more than just a means of exchange. It was a symbol of status, a source of power, and a testament to their far-reaching connections in a globalized world. Unlike perishable goods like furs or timber, silver held its worth over time, its value transcending the vagaries of weather and the whims of fashion. It could be melted down, reshaped and transformed into an array of objects, from intricate jewelry and ceremonial items to practical tools and weapons. This versatility made silver an ideal store of wealth, a tangible representation of prosperity that could be passed down through generations, buried with the dead, or readily traded in the bustling marketplaces of the Viking world. The Vikings, masters of maritime navigation and opportunistic traders, established a vast network of trade routes that crisscrossed Europe, reaching into the heart of the Byzantine Empire and the Islamic world. These routes, often following ancient waterways and overland trails, became conduits for the flow of silver, carrying this precious metal from its sources in Central Europe and the Middle East to the bustling marketplaces of Scandinavia. The Vikings, acting as both merchants and raiders, played a pivotal role in this silver trade, their longships becoming vessels of economic exchange that linked distant cultures and fueled the growth of their own burgeoning economy. One of the main arteries for the flow of silver into the Viking world was the Rhine River, which flowed from the Alps through the heart of the Frankish kingdoms. The Vikings, initially drawn to this region by the wealth of its monasteries and the relative ease with which they could be plundered, quickly recognized the economic potential of controlling this vital trade route. They established strategic strongholds along the Rhine, exacting tolls from passing merchants and using their military might to secure their interests. The Vikings, while familiar with coinage systems through their interactions with other cultures, did not initially adopt a standardized currency of their own. Instead, they relied on a practical and adaptable system known as hack silver, which involved using pieces of silver, often cut or broken from objects like jewelry, ingots or foreign coins, as a medium of exchange. This system, based on the weight of the silver rather than its form or origin, reflected the Vikings' pragmatic approach to trade and their preference for tangible assets over abstract monetary systems. Hack silver, as its name suggests, often involved physically altering silver objects to create smaller, more manageable units for trade. A silver arm ring, for example, might be chopped into segments, each weighing a specific amount, or a silver ingot might be hacked into smaller pieces, creating a readily available supply of currency. This practice of dividing and subdividing silver objects, while seemingly crude, demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of weights and measures, essential for ensuring fair transactions in a world where trust was paramount. Hoards and burials, silver's enduring embrace. The Vikings' reverence for silver extended beyond currency and adornment. It permeated their beliefs about the afterlife and their burial customs. Silver, often buried with the dead, symbolized enduring wealth and a passport to the afterlife. Discoveries of silver hoards reveal their beliefs and anxieties. Islamic silver, a transcontinental exchange. The Vikings' eastward expansion brought them into contact with the Islamic world. The Abbasid Caliphate's economy was fueled by trade and silver dirhams. These coins became highly sought after in the Viking world. Vikings were welcome trading partners in Islamic marketplaces. Their longships sailed down Russian rivers, reaching the Caspian Sea. In Baghdad, Viking traders exchanged wares for silver dirhams. Beyond currency, silver's social significance. Silver in the Viking Age transcended its purely economic function as a medium of exchange. It became deeply intertwined with the social fabric of Viking society, serving as a potent symbol of status, power, and personal identity. The possession of silver, whether in the form of gleaming jewellery, hoarded coins, or intricately crafted objects, conveyed a message of wealth, influence, and connection to the wider world. The ways in which the Vikings displayed, exchanged, and even buried their silver revealed a nuanced understanding of its social significance and its power to shape relationships and reinforce hierarchies. Viking elites, eager to display their wealth and distinguish themselves from those of lower social standing, adorned themselves with silver jewellery, often in elaborate and eye-catching designs. Arm rings, brooches, necklaces, and pendants, crafted from silver and often embellished with intricate engravings or inlaid with precious stones, became badges of honor, signifying the wearer's status, lineage, and achievements. The weight and craftsmanship of these silver adornments often reflected the wearer's social standing, with those of higher rank sporting more elaborate and heavier pieces, further emphasizing the visual language of wealth and power. The silver afterglow, a legacy of wealth and influence. The Vikings' fascination with silver shaped their economy, influenced their culture, and connected them to a vast network of exchange. Silver, whether Islamic dirhams, Frankish coins, or looted church treasures, fueled economic growth and artistic innovation. The influx of silver transformed their economy, facilitating trade and wealth accumulation. The fabric of Viking society, a tapestry of hierarchy. Viking society was a carefully structured hierarchy. Like a tapestry, it comprised distinct social classes with their own rights and obligations. This structure allowed for limited social mobility, reflecting values of strength and success. At the top were kings and jarls, the ruling elite. Below them were the freemen, the backbone of society. At the bottom were the thralls, slaves denied basic freedoms. This hierarchy was influenced by warfare, trade, and ambition. At the pinnacle of Viking society stood the kings and jarls, the ruling elite who commanded respect, wielded considerable power, and shaped the destiny of their people. These figures, often larger-than-life characters whose exploits were immortalized in sagas and poems, navigated a complex web of alliances, rivalries, and obligations, their authority resting on a delicate balance of military might, political acumen, and the ability to inspire loyalty and fear in equal measure. Kings in the Viking world were not absolute monarchs in the modern sense. They ruled not by divine right, but by the consent, however grudging, of those they governed. Their authority stemmed from their lineage, their military prowess, their control over resources, and their ability to dispense justice and maintain order. They led their people in war, negotiated treaties, collected taxes, and presided over religious ceremonies, their actions shaping the social, economic, and spiritual life of their communities. The freemen, comprising the vast majority of Viking society, were the backbone of the Viking world. They were the farmers, fishermen, craftsmen, traders, and warriors who tilled the land, sailed the seas, crafted essential goods, and defended their communities from rivals and invaders. Their lives, though often harsh and unforgiving, were marked by a degree of independence and self-reliance, their freedoms enshrined in ancient traditions, and their voices heard in local assemblies where matters of common concern were debated and decided. Freemen, unlike thralls, were free to own land, although the amount and quality of land they possessed varied greatly depending on their wealth, social standing, and family connections. Those who owned sufficient land to support themselves and their families were the most independent of the freemen, their livelihood secured by their own labor and the bounty of the land. They owed taxes and military service to their chieftain or king, but they were otherwise free to manage their own affairs. At At the bottom of the Viking social hierarchy stood the thralls, individuals bound to a life of servitude, their freedoms denied, and their destinies intertwined with the whims of their masters. Slavery, a harsh reality in many ancient societies, was an integral part of the Viking world, providing a source of labor, a commodity for trade, and a stark reminder of the precariousness of freedom in a world where violence, conquest, and social stratification were the norm. Thralls, typically acquired through warfare, raiding, or the slave trade, came from diverse backgrounds: captured warriors, enslaved families, individuals sold into bondage due to debt or hardship. They were stripped of their former identities and reduced to the status of property, their lives controlled by their masters, who held the power of life and death over them. They performed a wide range of tasks, from backbreaking, agricultural labor, and domestic chores to skilled craftsmanship and even military service. Their fates entirely dependent on the temperament and needs of their owners. The Vikings' belief in an afterlife profoundly influenced their burial customs and attitudes towards wealth and status. Death was seen as a continuation of life's journey, requiring proper equipment. Grave goods reflected social standing and provided for the journey to the afterlife. Viking burials varied greatly, reflecting social status and regional customs. Elite burials were lavish, involving valuable grave goods and sometimes sacrifices. The legacy of the Vikings. The enduring impact of the Vikings on modern culture, politics, and economics. From their exploration and trade routes to their influence on language and governance, the Vikings left an indelible mark on the world. This chapter will explore their legacy and how it continues to shape our world today. Pause 5. S. The echoes of Viking exploration resonate in today's global trade networks, where their pioneering routes paved the way for international commerce. Words and names derived from Old Norse are woven into the fabric of modern languages, a testament to their far-reaching influence. Pause 5. S. Politically, the Vikings contributed to the formation of new governance structures, influencing the development of parliamentary systems in places like Iceland and the British Isles. Their legal traditions and concepts of justice have left an imprint on modern legal systems. Pause 5s. Economically, the Vikings' emphasis on trade and wealth acquisition laid the groundwork for the burgeoning economies of medieval Europe. Their legacy is also visible in the enduring symbols of Norse mythology, which continue to inspire literature, art, and popular culture. Pause 5s. As we delve into the intricate tapestry of Viking legacy, we uncover how their spirit of adventure, resilience, and innovation continues to shape our world, reminding us of the profound impact this remarkable civilization has had on the course of history.